While we all have our fair share of heroes that we look up to, the gaming industry really wouldn't be where it is today without the femme fatales of gaming. How about you and I go on a journey and tackle a list of the most incredible female video game characters in existence? After all, who knows? Maybe there's someone on this list you haven't heard of, adding yet another awesome rabbit hole of gaming for you to jump into. Number 15, Clementine. Let's start things off with a heroine that's definitely made her mark, but is still someone you might consider relatively obscure these days. Just about everyone knows of The Walking Dead, and there was a time when its telltale outing was making huge waves. More or less, the series centers around a girl called Clementine, who starts off as a child, needing protection from Lee, the first game's protagonist, before eventually growing up and taking the reins in the game's final season. Essentially, you grow up with Clementine, making her one of the more fleshed out and relatable heroines on this list. Number 14, Aya Brea. Now, this is a gaming heroine close to my heart, as I came across Parasite Eve as a kid, and it was honestly kind of traumatizing. The story was grim and mature, and Aya Brea, an American police officer, had to deal with something far, far beyond her scope. Or mine for that matter. The fact that she didn't really have anything special about her until her cells started mutating added to that sense of dread. Even when you start kicking butt in the story, that sense of being a fish out of water never left me. Simply put, Aya Brea rose to the occasion despite being completely ordinary. If that doesn't scream video game badass, I don't know what does. Number 13, Heather Graham. I figure I may as well continue the trend of ordinary girls doing extraordinary things with Heather Graham from Silent Hill 3. Heather's got one goal in this horror story of a game: to figure out why her dad was killed. Now, I don't think I have to explain what the Silent Hill series is all about, because you've probably already heard of it. In essence, it tackles psychological horror by using the regrets of the protagonist and turning it into a nightmarish hellscape as they wander through the titular town. Heather seemingly is just a regular girl. While I won't spoil what happens, this is the basis of the game's horror. Your character is woefully unprepared for what's to come. Nevertheless, Heather manages to battle her inner demons, making her a top contender on this list. Number 12, Chun-Li. When you think about a female badass in a game such as Street Fighter, who's the first person to come to mind? Sure, it may have its fair share of female characters, such as Cammy, Juri, Sakura, Armika, and more, but for most people, Chun-Li is always the first on the list. There's no argument that Chun-Li is as iconic as can be as far as fighting game characters go, and she's aged like fine wine with the release of Street Fighter 6. If you haven't seen her in action, pause this video and have a look at any Chun-Li trailer for SF6, you won't regret it. Number 11, Commander Shepard. As I said, one of the coolest things about gaming is how you get to live thousands of lives across countless stories. The Mass Effect series is one of those stories that really tend to stick, which is why it's often considered a masterpiece by its fans. Honestly, all you have to do is play the first game to get hooked, only to realize there are two more incredible games that flesh out the universe and tells the whole story of Commander Shepard. Yes, Commander Shepard is a woman. He can be a man too, if you like. The cool thing is how Shepard can be whoever you want to be, and the world reacts accordingly. It helps that the voice acting for both male and female Shepards are top-notch, and they both deliver something incredible to the table. Number 10, Saber Artoria. This one's kind of an odd pick, considering the fact that the very first outing of the Fate series comes from the visual novel Fate Stay Night. However, it doesn't change the fact that it's still considered a game, and Saber has since appeared on quite a few other games in the Type Moon library. Saber is what you would call a servant, mythical heroes called forth to battle in the Holy Grail War. It's a lot to take in, but the visual novel is honestly an incredible experience start to finish. Since then, Saber has been a mainstay in all things Fate, and she's particularly beloved in Japan. Number 9, Sarah Kerrigan. Who here hasn't heard of StarCraft? Do I really have to explain what this series is all about? It's a game from Blizzard's golden age, and it's one of the best things they've ever released. The sequel manages to outperform in every single way, and it was pretty much one of the most anticipated games of 2010, which was 13 years ago? Time really flies, man. While the first game technically isn't about Kerrigan, she slowly but surely becomes one of the primary antagonists, before flipping the switch to become the savior of the universe, pretty much. If you haven't played StarCraft, please give it a shot. Number 8. Bayonetta Cereza. Looking for a heroine that takes zero shits and dances circles around demons, sometimes literally? Bayonetta is pretty much your go-to. The fun part about this femme fatale is the game series plays into the over-sexualization of women in video games by, well, owning it and turning it into something special. Do you want a power fantasy where you tackle celestial beings and beat the crap out of them while dancing seductively the whole time? Better yet, do you want all of that alongside addicting game mechanics? If you haven't tried it yet, please give Bayonetta a shot. Number 7. Shanoa. This one's a personal favorite of mine, and it's a shame that she doesn't get nearly enough recognition. I would most definitely consider Shanoa from Order of Ecclesia as one of the top female video game characters, mainly because of how badass she is in the game. Castlevania Order of Ecclesia isn't an easy game, not by any means. In fact, I'd probably have to label it as Nintendo hard, which harkens back to the old days, where games used difficulty to make up for a lack of content. In this case, however, Order of Ecclesia is an incredible mix of both. All you have to do is play the game to see just how much Shanoa deserves to be on this list. Number 6. Yora Number 2 Type B 2B. Let me start things off by gushing about just how good of a game Nier Automata actually is. It's an absolute masterpiece, and I dare not spoil anything here. All I want to say is that 2B is the protagonist of the game. She's an android, she's badass, she wields a giant katana alongside other weapons, and she looks incredible doing it. If you're looking for a game to really sink your teeth into, then go play Nier Automata. It'll weird you out at first, but I promise that it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Number 5. Jill Valentine. Of course, Resident Evil is going to make the list, but if I had to choose just one badass female character from the series, it'd definitely be Jill Valentine. Jill's been a part of the Legendary series since the beginning, and she's become something of an archetype as far as badass survival horror heroines go. As if that wasn't enough, Resident Evil is her solo outing, and she dukes it out with none other than Nemesis, one of the most iconic bosses in the Resident Evil franchise. Jill is up there with the likes of Lara Croft and Aya Brea, making her an obvious pick. Number 4. Princess Peach. Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle. Honestly, as far as gaming characters go, Princess Peach is a strange one. She's undoubtedly one of the most iconic video game characters to date, and there was no doubt she'd make it onto this list. The reason why it's so strange is because Princess Peach has been represented in just about every way you can think of. In some, she's the personification of damsel in distress. In others, she's a gaming badass. Many more representations tend to subvert what people have come to know about Princess Peach, which makes her, well, pretty much anyone we want her to be. Number 3. Lara Croft. Next on the list is someone who managed to bring video game heroines to the mainstream. Sure, you've had your fair share of femme fatales before Tomb Raider was released, but Lara Croft showed the gaming masses that woman protagonists were here to stay. Not only was her first outing groundbreaking for gaming culture, but it was also one of the first truly decent forays into 3D gaming. If you try the first Tomb Raider nowadays, it'll probably feel slow and janky, but it was revolutionary at the time. There was even that controversy about a certain gaming secret that had the male population clamoring for proof. I don't think I need to say more, but it just goes to show how popular this video game giantess was and still is. Number 2. Zelda. Zelda is part of the gaming pantheon that needs no explanation, similar to Princess Peach. In fact, Zelda is probably the most well-known character in gaming, while at the same time, not. Despite her name being in every title, people still tend to mistake Zelda for Link, the playable character of the Zelda series. The Legend of Zelda is all about saving Zelda, similar to how Mario is all about saving Princess Peach. However, there are many iterations where Zelda is the one to save Link's life, and while Princess Peach is happy to be the damsel in distress, Zelda is far more likely to play the heroine of the story. In a way, Princess Peach and Zelda are like the yin and yang of female video game characters. Together, they rule the female gaming space. Number 1. Samus Aran. Alright, let's step out of the strange world of damsel subversion and instead step firmly into the realms of female badassery with this last one. It can be argued that Samus of Metroid fame is the most iconic female video game character simply because people had no idea Samus was a girl when the game first released. It was something revealed only when you were good enough to complete the game within a certain amount of time. Only then did the game show you that the badass you've been playing as the whole time was a woman. Sure, it might not be a big deal now, but it was an absolute revelation back in the day, and that makes her the top female character both in playability and in real influence. So what about you guys? If you've got a favorite female video game character that isn't on the list, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. If there's anyone here who sparked your interest, I highly suggest you try the games they came from. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy gaming!